Okay. Hello. I am surprised. um, Even just like hearing my voice right now, I'm just kind of having like an odd, not odd, it's a good feeling, but it's surprising at the same time. Making that first video, I actually did watch it back several times, trying to find like the perfect like minute clip to post on Instagram or whatever. Um, and I wasn't cringing at myself at all. So that was part of the surprising thing, but also the surprising the most surprising bit to me currently is just my desire to do it again. So here I am making a second video. Um, and, I've how my mind works, which is a blessing and a burden kind of at the same time, is that I've been thinking ever since uploading the first video. I've been coming up with ideas of what do I talk about in the second one? What do I talk about in the third one, the fourth one? I caught myself so many times wanting to grab a post-it note and a pen or my phone and start writing notes on ideas. I do the same with my blog. I come up with little quips every now and again. I just will think of some things that I find interesting, or I'll come up with, or I'm sure I don't come up with the ideas, but I'll think of ideas that, oh, that would be cool to write about. But I stopped myself a lot because I was like, no, like it's okay. It's great to be a planner, but what I've found for me is that trying to plan kind of takes away, it adds in that perfectionism that I'm trying to keep at bay as much as possible. And it takes away that genuinity, if that's a word. I'm pretty sure it is. It takes away the rawness and the vulnerability. Um, I thought a lot about what I had said regarding using my voice and wanting to relearn how to use my voice. And it kind of dawned on me that using your voice is a way of showing up as well. And this goes beyond just like sharing yourself, by presenting yourself in this kind of format, a video online, or even just a voice recording, like podcasts, for example. Using your voice is a form of showing up as well in relationships. Any kind of relationship. I tend to think of relationships as any kind of connection that you have with another person. So it can be a work relationship, it can be an acquaintanceship, or even just an interaction with your your local grocery cashiers or baggers, or a gas station attendee. I mean, a relationship can happen at any point during your day. I have a relationship with my cats. I have a relationship with my husband. I have a relationship with my sister, my mom, my friends, my dad. They're all different. And as I'm sure you feel as well, the way that you show up in those relationships all differ from one another. I feel like I can talk to my sister about certain things, and it's easier for me to use my voice, share myself, connect with her on certain topics than it is with my husband. Just because there's a different knowing between person to person in certain relationships, and there's different history, there's different intimacy levels, there's so many variables that go into it. But before I digress too much into that, I was thinking the other day about how I show up in relationships. And one thing that has been a pretty consistent pattern throughout my life is that there's a certain level of vulnerability that I stop at. Sometimes I think that there's even a level of vulnerability that I stop at with myself. I grew up in a world where people who cried or people who were silly were too silly. You can be too. There was just this feeling of like, you're being too much, you're being too loud, too joyful, too, like, why are you so upset? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in my life from different people that I've had all types of relationships with. Why are you so upset to the point where you're crying? What you're crying about didn't happen to you. Or why are you you're being too silly? You need to calm down. I mean, you hear that a lot in school, which I understand is a disciplinary thing. But I just feel that myself and a lot of people I know growing up in that same time, we were kind of taught to be yourself, but not too much. I feel like that was kind of the message that we ended up getting. Be different, but not too different. Be smart, but not too smart. Be happy, but not too happy, because then you seem conceited, etc., etc. And how that manifested in me is really it made me feel like I had to put all of my emotions in a box. And what happens now, and it's getting better because I've been working on it for several years. I've been in therapy for, oh my gosh, a long time. I'm a big proponent of therapy when you find the right therapist for you, the right match. But yeah, what I ended up realizing about myself is that I felt like I had to put all of my emotions in a box. And when it came to a situation that, naturally you would have an emotional reaction for or to, how my brain has learned to process it because of that message that kind of became this underlying truth for me, was that I would need to analytically process it first, to be like, okay, how should I react in this moment for the other person or people involved? And while I understand how that could be appropriate in some cases, I have a nephew who's going to be 5 next year, and through watching my sister be a mom and parent and just being an aunt and having that new role and learning how to navigate it, I can understand how, for instance, with a child, if something happens, that child is looking at you and watching you to see what the reaction should be. So I can understand in those types of situations how maybe that is a good approach, to process analytically first, to then be like, okay, I'm going to respond this way so that this child can learn that, I mean, it's the same kind of science behind don't coddle a child every time they fall, because then the child is going to learn that a fall is bad or a fall is scary and they need a certain reaction every time they fall. I'm not a parent. That's not me giving parenting advice at all, but it's just more so observations that information that I've read about and listened to on podcasts that I find interesting, or just observations that I've had around my nephew or my friends' kids. But overall, I think that process is really damaging. It's been very damaging for me, I can say. By the way, if you hear me, I don't even know if the sound can pick it up, but I am a very belchy person, so I apologize in advance for any like subtle, soft belching noises. It is what it is. I've stopped having shame around it because it just is what it is. But yeah, it has been damaging for me because, one, I've come to identify as a highly sensitive person. I definitely consider myself to be an empath. I mean, everyone has kind of their different idea of what an empath is. I would say that I am a very empathetic person, and then also I tend to really feel other people's emotions very strongly. I'm very sensitive to that. I feel like I kind of always have been ever since I was a child, while also kind of living in this like la la land. As a kid, I was very just off kind of in my own world. Still today, I think I am, because that, I mean, your inner child is always with you. They live within us still. So there's still a part of me that lives in a bit of a off over here land that not everyone else understands or can tap into. But for someone who lives like that, who feels their own emotions very strongly, and then also other people's emotions very strongly, processing feelings analytically first numbs. It numbs a lot of true emotions that shouldn't be put in a box and should not be numbed. Surprisingly, and I don't know if this is how it is for everyone, I'm sure it's not, but you would think that an emotion like joy, that kind of expression, you'd think would be easy. That would be like the easiest thing, the easiest one to lean into. And then anger or sadness, like crying, would be really hard to do through that process, because being vulnerable, I think people look at that as more like a weakness. So those kinds of emotions that are associated with the idea of weakness, crying, fear, anxiety, depression is more than an emotion. and so is anxiety. But Brene Brown she has a lot of really awesome research into the power of vulnerability, and the story created around vulnerability being a weakness. Just want to tag that, because if ever anything I say resonated with anyone, I would love to be able to share the resources that I've found over the years that have helped me grow and learn more about myself. So Brene Brown is a big one for vulnerability. But for me, rather than joy being really easy to access, joy is like the hardest feeling for me to express. When someone comes to me with exciting news, or when something big and exciting happens in my life, I quiet. There are some people who explode and they show, their expression is so grandeur, and I love that. I love seeing people express themselves that way, because it seems so foreign to me. There was a time I found myself being very judgmental about that kind of thing, that kind of expression. I would judge those people. I would say they were too loud, they were annoying, they were too much. And once I started therapy, I realized that judgment that was happening was really just envy. Like the entire time I was just envious of those people, because that type of expression does not come easily to me. And I really wish that it did, because I am a very joyful person. My inner child is like one of the coolest people ever. I think we could say that about all of our inner children, our healed inner children. The more healed she becomes, the cooler she is to me. Just like the pureness of seeing something and just being like, wow, that's so cool. Or wanting to try something for the first time and just like having a blast, or retrying something that maybe we didn't succeed on the first time. And instead of being a big old Debbie Downer about it, when I find myself being a Debbie Downer about, maybe I shouldn't say Debbie Downer. I should just say Downer, for all of the Debbies out there, because I'm sure they haven't heard that joke so many times. This is coming from a recovering Stacy's mom person, so I get it. But yeah, that pureness is just so, I'm sorry. I already said that. When I find myself getting in that downer kind of, when that voice comes online, I usually imagine like my inner teen who's just like really critical and angsty, and wants to say the opposite of what everyone else is saying. So I kind of characterize my parts of self like that, and then what I consider to be my higher self, which is who I am when I'm fully tapped into my authenticity. Vulnerability is easy, like my fullest, vulnerable, authentic, genuine self. That's what I consider to be my higher self. When my inner teen is, being, well, a bit of a bitch to my inner child saying, oh, stop, you're being too much, you're being, etc. My higher self, how I kind of envision it is like my higher self will grab my inner teen's hand or put a hand on their shoulder and be like, hey, it's cool. Like, you don't need to be involved in this. If you don't like what you're seeing, or if you feel uncomfortable, you can sit out. And then my inner teen will, kind of sit and stew over it for a bit and then eventually get over it, because it's like the easiest thing to do as a teen is like just brush something off and be like, whatever, I don't care. Oh man. I don't know that you could pay me to go back and be a teen. You could definitely pay me to go back in time as me now and like spend time with my inner teen. Like middle school to high school is the time frame I'm thinking of the most. You could definitely pay me to do that, but to go back and like relive being my teen self, no thank you. No thanks. But anyway, the whole point I'm kind of getting to is that I've realized that a part of this process for me is probably the hardest part of it is going to be the showing up part. Allowing myself to get choked up if I get choked up, or allowing myself to just not numbing myself. Like, even sitting here now talking about it, I feel the tears. I feel them. And my brain is immediately going into panic mode of like, no, we don't do that. We do not do that. We don't do that in real time in front of people. We don't do that in a video that we're going to post online where anyone can see it. I even laugh with my therapist because, I'll even build a wall in therapy sometimes, and I've been seeing my therapist for 4 years, I think, at this point. There is absolutely no reason that I shouldn't be able to fully cry in front of her. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to fully cry in front of my husband, or when I start crying during a movie where he is also tearing up because of something that's going on. There's no reason for me to go, no, ha ha ha, and turn it into a joke. Like, I'm okay, I promise, or have to walk out of the room. Like, the shame is ingrained so deep, of, I'm not even really sure what it is. I'm not sure that I'd be able to name it. I guess I need to think more on it. But it is a shame. It's a shame and an embarrassment of like, don't look stupid, or you look so silly right now crying over something you think is pretty. Or one of my favorites, sarcasm, thinking back is, why are you crying about that person who just died? You barely knew them. Or why are you still crying about that person? They've been gone for 15 years. I have been able to come to a better place within myself to accept it, like, hey, this is who we are. We have a big heart. We love intensely. We grieve intensely. Grief has been, I'm going to try to just let it happen. I also just don't think I'm a very pretty crier. So, that plays into it as well. But I don't think I'm as bad as like all of the Kim Kardashian memes, but you know, whoever thinks that they're pretty criers, I don't know. But grief has been my biggest enemy throughout my life, but also now, today, like one of my closest friends, which is weird to say, and maybe I can shed more light on that in another video, but because I know a lot of people really struggle with grief. Grief is a tough one. It's really tough. But I'm someone who has always loved hard, grieved hard. Those have been two things that have come really easy to me. And it's easy to get, it's easy for that to turn into a toxic thing. So that's one of the other things is there's the not numbing part, but then there's also the balance part. You know, there are a lot of people in life who can never find the balance. So, you know, you have the people who get anxious when they're happy, they get anxious when they're sad, they get anxious when they're angry. I definitely fall into that category, but I know there are some people out there who I've known in my life who struggle with that even more than I do. And it's just, it always makes me come back to like, just what a wild ride this is. Life. Being a human being, having a soul encased in this flesh suit. You know, it's just, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me. Anyway, I guess to close this out, I don't even know how to close it out, really, but I am excited. I'm terrified, but I'm excited to keep showing up. I don't want to be afraid to show up in my life. I'm 33. I thought I wasn't going to make it past 16. Not because I was a reckless person or anything, but I experienced a lot of death before the age of 16, so I just thought to myself, I'm probably not going to make it past 16. That seems like a pretty solid time for people to go out. But I'm 33 now. You know, twice that age. And I really thought I was going to be able to make it through an entire video without a cat interrupting, but I suppose not. I'm sure she'll jump up here in a minute. Hi. This is Romy, by the way. She is the youngest of the 6 that we have, and I joke that I birthed her. I've literally had her since the day she was born. She's a very, very talkative girl, so usually whenever she comes up and I'm doing something like this, or like talking on the phone or something, I have to give her attention or else she will just not shut up. Granted, she does have a very cute voice. But, yeah, I'm terrified and excited all at the same time to push myself and challenge myself with showing up and being vulnerable and not holding back on that, because I think it is an absolute power. I think it's magic when you meet someone who, when they look at you, it's so intentional. When they listen to you, it's so intentional, and they can cry for you, with you. They can be happy for you and with you. the people, when it comes so easily to them, is just, it's magical to me. One person I can think of is my friend Katie Lou, who, oh my gosh, the tears are on tap today. While Katie Lou and I don't talk nearly as often as I wish we did, she is someone who, oh man, constantly, she's just such a good example of someone who is just that type of person. Like, have you ever met someone and you're just like, oh my God, how is that person even real? That's her. Like, the magic is just so absolutely present in everything that she does. And my God, Katie, if you ever watch this, sorry. Sorry that I'm such a blubbering mess talking about you, but there really are those people in your life that expand you, and they just make such a difference in your life. And a lot of the time you don't really realize it when it's happening. You realize it years later, in moments where you're crying to people. You're crying on a video that's posted on the internet. Jeez. Woo. But it's people like that, like Katie Lou, that showed me it's possible. And knowing that they exist helps me to not bury the shame, because you shouldn't bury the shame, but it helps me confront the shame that comes with, that makes me want to hide myself, makes me want to hide my emotions and my expression of emotion. They make me braver, and those people are, it's so important to have people like that in your life. And if you don't feel like you have anyone like that in your life, I know what that feels like, and I'm sorry for that. They are out there, though. They absolutely exist. I think that through healing is when you find yourself open. You find that you're open enough to allow those people to come into your life. Again, like I said, sometimes you don't realize that they're there. Maybe just in like a 10-degree distance, you know, in your life. You don't realize that they're there until you're open to it. But deep breaths are also really important after you express yourself. If you're someone who struggles with that a bit, you have to let yourself breathe. Because too often are we holding our breaths. We're holding our breath. We're tense. We're like this. we have to release and relax. Anyway, yeah, I'm not quite sure how to close this out. We're going on 35 minutes now, which is crazy long. I don't know anyone who just like watches and listens to someone for this long. I mean, I know that I do, but I've always thought that I'm kind of strange because I like doing that. So, if you have listened until the end, thank you. I'm not gonna apologize. I'm not gonna apologize. I immediately wanted to go into like, I'm sorry that I was crying, but I'm not. I'm not gonna do that because we should never apologize for being ourselves. We should never apologize for coming from the heart, having an open heart. That's not something that we should apologize for. Because in the long run, if it makes someone else uncomfortable, that's not our problem. And if anything, that shows us that that person is struggling with the same thing. So, yeah. And the only reason I've been uncomfortable with it myself, why I've grown so uncomfortable, is because of society and other people making me feel, not making me, but, you know, me hearing them with that kind of message that like I should be uncomfortable with who I am. So don't apologize for being your true self. That's where I'll end this video. Thank you.